My name is Eileen Simpson, and I'm 35 years old. If you ask my family, I'm the one who never quite got it together. If you ask my bank account, you'd hear a very different story. Thanksgiving dinner at my parents' house is always the same circus. 23 people crammed into a dining room built for 12. Folding chairs, kids weaving under the table like it's an obstacle course. My Aunt Linda complaining about her back while going for a third slice of pie. The air thick with turkey, gravy, and unsolicited advice. I was wedged between my cousin Beth and the dessert table, balancing a plate of pumpkin pie and lukewarm coffee, when my younger brother Daniel stood up and tapped his fork against his glass. He had that smile, the one that said, "I'm about to make an announcement, and I've rehearsed this in the mirror." "Hey, everyone," he said. "Got an announcement." The room settled, chairs scraped, a few kids were shushed. Sarah and I closed on our house last week. The room erupted. Cheers, clapping, a chorus of, "Oh my God, congratulations." Mom actually gasped and covered her mouth like she was in a movie. Dad stood up to shake his hand. Daniel pulled out his phone, already swiping to photos. 3-bedroom, suburban, nice neighborhood, he said, spinning the screen around. 2-car garage, good yard, finally building equity, no more throwing money away on rent. He made sure to angle that line toward Dad. Dad nodded, approving, as if Daniel had just passed some unspoken adulthood exam. Smart move. That's how you build real wealth. I smiled, because that's what I do. Smile and let the scene play out. Then Daniel's eyes landed on me, still smiling, but something in it shifted. Curiosity, pity, maybe a little superiority. "What about you, Eileen?" he asked, loud enough for the table. "Still in that downtown apartment?" I took a sip of coffee, buying myself a second. "Yeah." "How long's it been now? 7 years?" "About that." He shook his head with mock disbelief. 7 years of rent. What's that running you now? $2,000 a month?" "Around there," I said, feeling 22 pairs of eyes settle on me. I watched Daniel do the math in his head. I could practically see the numbers move behind his eyes. He loved this part. He paused for effect. "That's $168,000. Just gone. Down the drain." He let the silence stretch, like the number itself needed space in the room. A few people murmured. Aunt Linda clicked her tongue. "Such a waste," she said. "You should really buy something, sweetheart." Daniel kept going. "You know, even a small condo. Start somewhere. I can connect you with our realtor. He's great. Really walked us through everything." "Yeah," I said. "I'll think about it." Dad leaned forward, inhaling like he was about to deliver a sermon. "Daniel's right, Eileen. Renting at your age?" He actually did the little head tilt of concern. "You're 35. Time to start building real wealth." Mom chimed in, eager not to miss her line. "Daniel's house is lovely. Maybe we can all help you find something. We could go to some open houses together, make a fun weekend of it." From across the room, my sister Michelle added, "I've been telling you this for years. Renting is like lighting money on fire." I nodded and kept my mouth shut. Let them have their moment. Daniel sat down dramatically, still basking in the glow of his announcement and the glow of his own advice. "My family really loves advice. They hand it out like party favors." The conversation shifted to interest rates, mortgage pre-approval, and down payments. Uncle Jim launched into a story about buying his first house in 1987 and how kids today don't understand sacrifice. I finished my coffee, helped clear plates, made small talk with Cousin Beth about her new job. Normal Thanksgiving things. Later, while I was loading the dishwasher, Daniel joined me, leaning against the counter like he was about to discuss something serious and man-of-the-house-like. "Hey," he said, "I wasn't trying to embarrass you out there." "You didn't," I said. "I just want to see you do well." He shrugged. "You've got a good job. You're responsible. You should be building something, you know. Renting, it's not really succeeding, it's just surviving." I shut the dishwasher a little harder than I meant to. "I hear you. So you'll think about it? Buying?" "I will." He patted my shoulder like I was his younger sister, not the other way around. "Good. You've got potential, Eileen. Just need to make smarter choices." Smarter choices. I smiled. Because if I didn't smile, I might laugh, or cry, or tell him the truth. Around 9, I said my goodbyes, hugged Mom, let Dad give me another half hug with a back pat, congratulated Daniel and Sarah one more time, listened to Daniel call after me. "I'll send you our realtor's number. You'll love him." "Sounds great," I said. Outside, the November air bit my cheeks. I walked to my car, my 6-year-old Honda Accord. Reliable, paid off, unremarkable. My family saw it as proof I was practical and probably struggling just a bit. I drove away, past downtown, past the apartment building they all thought I still lived in. I even slowed at the intersection just to look at it, the life they'd written for me in their heads. Then I kept driving. The city thinned, the lots got bigger, trees appeared, followed by gates and long driveways. I turned onto a quiet street on the north side where houses didn't sit side by side. They sat back, behind codes and cameras. I pulled into my driveway, long, curved, lined with mature oaks, punched in the gate code, watched the iron gate swing open, drove up to my house. The house no one in my family knew existed. 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, 2 stories of glass and clean lines, floor-to-ceiling windows, hardwood floors, marble countertops, a pool in the back that caught the reflection of the city lights like liquid glass. Purchase price, $1.2 million paid in cash. I parked in my 3-car garage next to the same Accord my family used as Exhibit A in the case of why Eileen isn't doing as well as she could. Inside, the quiet hit me first. No clinking dishes, no overlapping conversations, no advice. Just silence. I kicked off my shoes, poured myself a bourbon, and sank into my leather couch. The real leather, not the close enough version I grew up with. Through the windows, the city glittered in the distance. 168,000 down the drain, Daniel had said. If he only knew. 3 years ago, I decided I was done letting my family's commentary script my life. Every time I shared good news, it turned into a lecture. When I paid off my car, Dad said, "You should have kept the loan and invested the money. Car loans are cheap. The market returns more." When I got my first big raise, Michelle launched into a speech about how I was probably wasting money on stupid things and needed to grow up and get serious about my future. The irony? I'd been maxing out my 401k since I was 28, so I stopped sharing. Promotions went unmentioned. Salary jumps became, it's fine, work's all right. Bonuses quietly slid into index funds. I learned that vague answers were a kind of armor. You can't criticize what you don't know exists. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. A text from Ethan, my boyfriend. Ethan. Survive the Mercer Invitational Judgment Marathon? Me. Barely. Daniel bought a house. Everyone's proud. Ethan. And you? Me. I'm still the tragic renter, apparently. Ethan. Sitting in your 1.2 M living room as we speak? Me. With bourbon. That makes it poetic. Ethan. You know, at some point, hiding turns into bleeding. Just be careful, eh? I stared at his last message. Be careful. I took a sip of bourbon and leaned my head back against the couch. This quiet, this distance, this control over what people knew about me, this was what I'd chosen. 10 years of living below my means, saving 60% of my income, investing while everyone else assumed I was just getting by. I told myself the secret was freedom. Somewhere in the back of my mind, a small voice whispered, or maybe it's just another cage, a prettier one. I ignored it. Tomorrow, I'd go back to work, back to my life, back to family texts about when are you going to get serious and buy, back to nodding and smiling. They thought I was just surviving. They had no idea what I'd built while they weren't looking. When my phone rang 2 days after Thanksgiving, I was in the middle of a morning meeting. The caller ID flashed Daniel. I let it go to voicemail, but he immediately texted, "Hey, need your address. Want to mail you something." I stared at the message for a full 10 seconds. My stomach tightened. Address. The word felt suddenly dangerous. I stepped out of the meeting, leaning against the hallway wall. Before I could overthink it, I called him back. "Hey," he said cheerfully, "I'm sending you and Eileen Jr. a housewarming gift. You know," he chuckled, "apartment warming." "What kind of gift?" I asked carefully. "A book," he said with too much enthusiasm. "Real estate investing. Sarah found it. Thought it might help you get started." A book about real estate investing for the woman who already owned a $1.2 million house. "That's thoughtful," I managed. "Already bought it," he said. "Just need your address, unless you're still at the old place." Silence stretched. Finally, I said the words that would unravel everything. "Actually, I don't live there anymore." He froze. I heard it in the gap between breaths. "What? Since when?" 3 years ago, I said. 3 years? His voice pitched upward. "You moved 3 years ago and didn't tell anyone?" "It just didn't come up. Eileen, we had an entire conversation at Thanksgiving about you renting, about throwing money away. You could have said something." I stared at my own reflection in the office window. You were excited about your house, I said softly. I didn't want to make it weird. He was quiet for a moment. Where do you live? North Side. Another beat. You bought a place? Yes. Another breath. Did you buy a house? Yes. How much? A part of me considered lying, giving him a modest-sounding number, something that would blend safely into the background of our family's expectations. But I was tired. 1.2 million. Dead silence. Then, you're joking. I'm not. You bought a $1.2 million house? Yes. In cash? I didn't say that. Did you? I closed my eyes. Yes. He exhaled like someone had punched him. I need to see this, he finally said. Can I come over Saturday? I almost said no. The excuse formed in my mouth. Busy weekend, not a good time, maybe later. But something unexpected stopped me. Curiosity. Maybe even the desire to not be invisible to at least one person in my family. Sure, I said. Saturday at 10. Saturday morning, 9:58 a.m. My house was spotless, cleaner than it needed to be. I tried to tell myself it wasn't nerves, but my heart didn't listen. At exactly 10:03, I saw Daniel's SUV pull up the drive through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Even from inside, I saw both him and Sarah staring at the house, not at the door, at the structure, at everything they weren't expecting. I opened the front door before they knocked. Daniel didn't speak at first. He just blinked. This is the place, he finally whispered. This is it. All of it? All of it, I said, stepping aside. When they walked in, they moved slowly, like they were afraid stepping too fast would break something. The vaulted entryway rose above them, sunlight catching the chandelier I'd installed last year. The open floor plan stretched out, living room to dining area to kitchen, all blending into each other under 18-foot ceilings. Daniel turned in a slow circle, taking it all in. Eileen, he let out a breath. This is... Sarah recovered first, brushing her fingers along the marble island. This is Carrara Calicata, right? Close, I said, a variant, similar veining. She gave a soft laugh, turning back to Daniel. Your sister lives in an architectural magazine. He swallowed. You own this, he said. It wasn't a question. I do. We made our way into the living area. Daniel ran his hand along the built-ins I had custom designed. Sarah walked to the windows and stared into the backyard. Is that a heated pool? Year-round, I said. Daniel sat heavily on one of the stools at the island. I need the long version, he said. How did you do this? I leaned on the counter, my palms flat against the cool surface. 10 years ago, I made a plan, I began. I didn't like the math of where I'd be at 35, so I changed the math. By doing what? He asked. By living below my means, way below. That downtown apartment, it was $2,000 a month, and everyone assumed that meant I was scraping by. Weren't you? He asked. No, I smiled faintly. By year 3, I was making $150,000. By year 5, $200,000. By year 8, $280,000. Sarah's eyes widened. What do you do again? Enterprise systems architecture. Companies pay a lot for scalable, secure infrastructure. And now? Daniel asked quietly. $340,000. He blew out a breath. I continued. I saved 60% of every paycheck, every raise, every bonus. I invested early. Index funds, some stocks. Let compounding do the heavy lifting. Did you not take vacations? Sarah asked. I took simple ones. Road trips mostly. No new cars, no fancy furniture. I cooked, I planned, I waited. And it got you 800,000? Daniel asked. 850 by the time I started house hunting. He shook his head slowly. Jesus, Eileen. This place was listed at 1.3, I said. I offered 1.2 in cash, closed in 3 weeks. Daniel stared at the floor. My house is $350,000, he said quietly. We put down 70. We pay $2,400 a month in mortgage and HOA and insurance, and we feel proud, like we're doing well. You are doing well, I said gently. He didn't look convinced. This, he gestured around, this is where people end up at 50, not 35. Different choices lead to different timelines. His jaw clenched. Were you ever going to tell us? He asked. I hesitated. Honestly, probably not. Why? Because every time I shared something good, anything good, someone critiqued it. Dad said paying off my car was a mistake. Michelle said my raises weren't enough. Mom said I wasn't saving right. You all meant well, but you made every win feel like a warning. He looked down. And eventually, I added, I got tired of feeling small for being proud. Silence. Long, heavy silence. Sarah finally spoke. This must have been lonely. For the first time, the truth cracked something open in me. It was quieter, I said, and quiet felt safer. Daniel rubbed his forehead. Do Mom and Dad know? No. Do you want us to keep it that way? Yes. He let out a long breath. I promise. Sarah nodded. Same. But the shift in their faces told me everything. They understood the secret. They also understood its weight. And now, they were carrying it too. Keeping a secret is easy when it's only yours. But once someone else knows, once it lives in another person's chest, behind another person's ribs, it becomes something else. Heavier, sharper, louder. Daniel and Sarah lasted exactly 5 days before the weight of my truth began to show. The following Sunday, Mom called about a small dinner, just immediate family. You, Daniel, Michelle, Dad, and me, she said. Nothing big. Dad's making ribs. Sounds good, I said. Oh, and bring a side dish, she added. Maybe something simple. Potato salad? You don't need to spend much. A familiar sting. The assumption. Always the assumption. I'll handle something, I said. You're a sweet girl, she chirped. See you at 6. I brought a store-bought potato salad, the cheapest one from the deli section. It was a performance at this point. Costume design, set dressing, continuity. When I walked inside, Daniel and Sarah were already there. And I saw it instantly. Daniel's shoulders were tight. His smile looked stapled on. He wasn't acting like himself, at least not like the freewheeling, self-assured Daniel everyone else knew. He looked like a man who'd accidentally swallowed a live secret and now had to pretend it wasn't trying to claw its way out. Hey, he said softly. Hey. We didn't hug. It felt too loaded. Dinner started fine. Ribs, cornbread, Mom's attempt at coleslaw that always tasted like regret. Small talk. Laughter. Then Dad did what Dad always does. So, Eileen, he said, slicing a rib, make any progress on the house hunt? I felt Daniel freeze beside me. Not yet, I said calmly. You should get serious, Dad continued. The longer you wait, the harder it gets. Mortgage rates aren't going down anytime soon. Michelle nodded, swallowing a forkful of salad. It's crazy expensive right now. You're better off buying sooner than later. Mom leaned closer. What's your budget, honey? Sarah choked on her water so violently that Dad reached over to pat her back. Daniel put his fork down with a little too much force. I haven't set a budget yet, I said. Well, you should, Dad insisted. You can't shop seriously without knowing your monthly payment range. Have you talked to a mortgage broker? Mom asked. Daniel can give you his contact. Great rates. I felt Daniel's whole body stiffen. No, he said abruptly. Maybe we shouldn't. Michelle laughed. Since when are you protective of Eileen? You've been lecturing her longer than any of us. Daniel swallowed hard. Sarah avoided eye contact entirely. Mom patted my hand again. We're just trying to help, sweetheart. You're 35. It's time to build something real. Something real. The words hit harder than I expected. I looked at each of them. My family who meant well, but always felt entitled to my interior world. My real home was 10 times bigger than this entire house. My something real had a gate code and a heated pool. I appreciate the concern, I said evenly. I am thinking about it. Conversation moved on. Daniel didn't speak again for the rest of dinner. Later, while we were loading the dishwasher, Daniel stood beside me, staring into the racks like they held the answers to life. That was brutal, he whispered. That was normal, I corrected. I don't know how you stand it. I remember they don't know any better. He shut the dishwasher too slowly, like he needed to drag out the movement. Mom literally told you to start building something real. He gestured vaguely. You own a $1.2 million house, Eileen. Ironic, isn't it? It's insane. I gave him a small smile. Welcome to my life for the last 3 years. Sarah came in then, glancing over her shoulder to make sure no one followed. I almost blew it, she whispered. When? I asked. When your mom asked your budget, she pressed her fingers to her lips. I almost laughed. I had to fake coughing. I noticed, I said. This is harder than I expected, she said quietly. Listening to them talk to you like that, knowing what we know, not being able to say anything. You don't have to keep the secret, I offered gently. Either of you. Daniel shook his head immediately. No, I gave you my word. Sarah nodded. We won't break it, but maybe give us a heads up before the next family dinner so we can mentally prepare. There's always going to be family dinners, I said softly. Daniel groaned. Great. Something to look forward to. The next big test came 2 weeks later, at Michelle's birthday party. Extended family, cousins, aunts, uncles, everyone with opinions, and plenty of wine. I brought a card and a modest gift card. Expected, normal, non-suspicious. Within 10 minutes of arriving, Uncle Jim cornered me by the snack table. Eileen, how's life? Still downtown? Still there, I said. You really should think about buying. My buddy's in real estate. Great guy. Can help you get your foot in the door. Thanks, I said. I'll keep it in mind. You're not getting any younger, he added helpfully. I nodded politely. Behind him, I caught a glimpse of Daniel. His jaw was tight, his hands balled into fists. When Uncle Jim walked away, Daniel marched toward me. How? He demanded. How what? How do you just take it over and over? He literally just said you're running out of time, and you just nodded. What was I supposed to do? I asked. Tell him the truth, Daniel hissed. Tell him you own a house worth more than his entire portfolio. Daniel, I said softly, touching his arm. Let's go outside. We stepped into Michelle's backyard. The cold air hit like honesty. You okay? I asked. No, I'm not okay. This is making me crazy. Then tell them, I said gently. I release you from the promise. He shook his head violently. It's not about the promise anymore. Then what? He ran a hand through his hair, pacing the length of the patio. It's about watching them treat you like you're clueless, like you need their advice, while you're the most financially put-together person any of us know. That's nice of you to say. I'm not being nice, he snapped. I'm being honest. You built something incredible, and no one knows. Because I chose that, I reminded him. Why would you choose that? He demanded. Because if they knew, they'd make it complicated. Dad would interrogate me, Mom would worry, Michelle would judge, you would compare. It would become about them, not about me. Daniel stopped pacing. That's cynical. That's realistic. He stared at the ground, breathing hard. My house, he said quietly. We bought it for $350,000. I was proud. It felt like this huge milestone, like we'd finally made it. You did, I said truthfully. You should be proud. But then I saw your house, and suddenly mine felt small, like I hadn't actually accomplished anything. I took a slow breath. Daniel, I said gently, that's not fair, to you or to me. He looked up, eyes raw. Is it fair that you built freedom and I didn't? I swallowed hard. I never meant to make you feel small, I whispered. I know, he said. That's the worst part. You didn't do anything wrong. But now that I know, I can't not know. We stood in silence, listening to laughter drift through the window. He exhaled. I'm sorry, he said, for making this about me. You're fine. I'm not, he said, but I'll get there. He hesitated. Then, Eileen, are you happy? With the secret? With all of it? I had answered that question a dozen times in my own mind, and yet standing in the cold, looking at my brother's face, the only person who knew the truth besides Ethan, I wasn't sure anymore. I paused. I'm peaceful. Is that the same as happy? He asked gently. I didn't answer. Because I didn't know. Secrets always feel light at first, like a breath you hold in your chest, thinking you can let it out whenever you want. But weeks passed after Michelle's birthday party, and the air in my lungs grew thinner. The secret wasn't small anymore. It had multiplied, occupying Daniel's chest, Sarah's throat, the space behind my own ribs. And then came Dad's retirement party. It was a backyard barbecue, classic Dad. Charcoal smoke settling over mismatched lawn chairs, coolers filled with beer, cousins running around with water balloons. Mom darted between tables, arranging dishes like sculptures. I arrived in my trusty Honda Accord, the familiar performance. Daniel and Sarah were already there. We exchanged a quiet nod, a silent code for we know too much now. 10 minutes into the party, Uncle Jim found me again. Eileen, he boomed, clapping a hand on my shoulder. Still in that little downtown apartment? Still there, I said. You really ought to think about buying, even a small condo. Get your foot in the door. A foot in the door. My front door cost more than his entire retirement portfolio. That's good advice, I said. He walked away satisfied. A moment later, Daniel stepped up next to me, his face twisted like he'd bitten into something sour. I hate him, he muttered. You don't hate Uncle Jim. I hate what he does, Daniel corrected, talking to you like that, like you need basic financial literacy. He means well. That doesn't make it less condescending. We both stared at the party in silence for a moment, everyone laughing, talking, completely oblivious to the truth sitting between us like a third sibling. How's Sarah doing? I asked. She's journaling, he said. A lot. That's good. We're also seeing therapists separately. I blinked. Because of my secret? He shrugged. Partly. We've got our own stuff too. But yeah, this comes up. I felt an ache deep in my sternum. I'm sorry, I whispered. He shook his head. Don't be. You didn't ask us to carry it. We chose to. Mom's voice rang out then. Everyone, come over. Gift presentation time. We joined the crowd as Michelle handed Dad an envelope. He opened it and beamed. A cruise? He said. 2 weeks in the Mediterranean? You kids didn't have to do this. He was glowing. Mom cried. Everyone clapped. I clapped too. I had contributed my modest share, just enough to blend in, not enough to raise questions. Daniel leaned close and whispered, "You could fund this entire thing 10 times over." "But then I'd have to explain why," I whispered back. He sighed. Later, I was scraping food into the trash when Dad came up behind me. "Thanks for coming, Eileen," he said. "And thank you for contributing. We know money's tight for you." There it was. That sentence. The assumption so baked into their understanding of me that it flowed out naturally. "Of course," I said. Dad leaned against the counter. "Your mother and I worry, you know. That old apartment, that old car. We just want to see you settled." I dried my hands on a towel. "Dad," I asked softly, "what would settled look like to you?" He thought for a second. "A house, maybe. A husband. Kids if you want them. Stability. The traditional stuff." "And if I had some but not all?" I asked. "Would I be settled then?" "It depends on which parts," he said honestly. "I figured." He frowned. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," I said lightly. "Everything's fine." But something inside me twisted. Not anger, not sadness, just a cold truth. Nothing I accomplished privately would ever count as real to them. Only what they saw. Only what they understood. I slipped out to the backyard for air. Mom's garden was blooming along the fence. Lilies and roses she coaxed to life every year. Sarah joined me quietly. "You okay?" she asked. Thinking. "About the secret?" "About whether it's sustainable." She nodded, chewing her lip. "Can I tell you something?" "Always." "Daniel's been different since he found out." "I noticed." "He's more driven," she said. "He started tracking our spending, increased his 401k, sold his boat." "He had a boat?" I asked. "For 2 months, impulse buy." I snorted. Of course he had. "It's good that he's more intentional," I said. "It is," she agreed, "but he can't talk about why. He can't explain the shift. He can't tell anyone what inspired him." "I never meant for any of this to hurt you two." "I know," she said softly. "And we chose to keep your secret, but Eileen, secrets have a cost." She looked me in the eyes. "Even the justified ones." The words settled over me like a thin layer of frost. 2 weeks later, Daniel called. "Can I come over?" he asked. "Now?" "Yeah." 20 minutes later, he was sitting on my back deck, staring at the pool like it held the answers to every question he'd never asked. "I can't do this anymore," he said. My chest tightened. "Do what?" "Keep your secret." My stomach dropped, but before I could speak, he held up a hand. "I'm not going to tell them," he said firmly. "I gave you my word. I'll never break it." Relief mixed with dread. "But I need you to understand," he continued, voice shaking slightly, "that this isn't just your secret anymore. It's mine too, and it's changing me." "Daniel." "Every family gathering," he said, "I watch them underestimate you. Every time Mom talks down to you, I want to scream. Every time Dad gives you advice about money, I want to throw myself into traffic. Every time Uncle Jim opens his mouth, I fantasize about faking my own death." Despite myself, I laughed. He didn't. "This is eating me alive," he said. "And Sarah, too. We think about it all the time. We're careful every minute around your family. It's exhausting." I swallowed, hard. "I never meant for this to burden you." "I know," he said. "But you've gotten used to this life, this hiding. It's normal to you. But for me, for Sarah, it's not. And you haven't asked if we're okay carrying it." I was quiet. Because he wasn't wrong. Finally, he said the thing I didn't expect. "I don't want the secret gone. I want you to be free of it." A breath caught in my throat. "What do you want me to do?" I whispered. "I don't know," he said. "But maybe the secret's costing you too." It was the first time anyone had ever said that to me, and it hit deeper than I wanted to admit. We sat in silence for a long time. No words. Just the sound of the water filter humming in the pool. Finally, I spoke. "I'll tell them," I said. Daniel's head snapped toward me. "What?" "I'll tell the family." You don't have to do that for me." "I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it because—" I exhaled. "Because maybe I'm tired too." He swallowed hard. "When?" "Soon." He nodded slowly, relief flickering across his face like a candle catching flame. "They're going to lose their minds," he said. "Probably. You ready for that?" "No," I said honestly, "but I don't think I'll ever be ready, so I might as well do it anyway." He looked at me, really looked at me, and he smiled. For the first time in months, it was real. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what?" "For being my sister." We sat there together, 2 siblings, 1 truth, 1 impossible decision, and watched the sun set over the backyard of the house no one was ever supposed to know about. Soon they would. I didn't pick a holiday. I didn't pick a birthday. I didn't pick a special moment. I picked a Sunday. A plain, boring Sunday. Because if my family was going to see the truth of my life, it wasn't going to be dressed up as a performance. It needed to land in a quiet place, a real place. Can I host this week's family dinner? I asked Mom casually on the phone. A beat of silence. You? She asked. At your apartment? Yes. But honey, there's barely space for all of us. Where will we sit? I've got it figured out, I said. She hesitated, then relented. All right, sweetheart. 6 o'clock. I texted Daniel separately. It's happening. Come around 6:30. I need time with them first. He replied almost instantly. Proud of you. We'll be there. Sunday arrived. I watched the security camera feed on my phone as Mom, Dad, and Michelle pulled up to the gate they didn't know existed. Their car slowed, stopped, reversed a little, then advanced again. Mom leaned forward in the passenger seat, squinting at the keypad. She called me. Eileen, are we in the right place? Did you send us the wrong address? No, I said. Type in the code I texted you. I watched them do it. The gate slid open. Their car rolled forward, inching up the long driveway like they were entering sacred territory. When they finally stepped out, they didn't come to the door right away. They stood in front of the house, staring at it, like it was staring back at them. I opened the door before they knocked. Mom's hand flew to her chest. Eileen, honey, do you work here? No, I said softly. I live here. The world stopped for 3 seconds. Dad blinked. Michelle's mouth fell open. Come inside, I said gently. I'll explain everything. They walked in like Daniel and Sarah had, slowly, almost reverently, as if rushing would shatter something. Michelle touched the wall, the banister, the edge of the built-in shelving, like she didn't trust the surfaces to be real. Mom walked ahead of everyone, turning in slow, stunned circles under the vaulted ceiling. Dad whispered, I don't understand. I bought this house 3.5 years ago, I said. I've been living here ever since. But you said you were still in that apartment, Mom sputtered. No, I corrected gently. You assumed I was still there, and I didn't correct you. Michelle's voice sliced through the air. Why would you hide something like this? I inhaled sharply. Because, I said, every time I shared good news, someone had advice, or criticism, or judgment. It never felt like support. Mom frowned. We were trying to help. I know, I said softly, but it didn't feel like help. It felt like pressure, like whatever I did wasn't quite enough. Dad stepped toward the windows, looking out over the pool. This is really yours? He asked quietly. This is really mine. He shook his head. We've spent years giving you advice about how to build equity, about buying real estate, and you? And I already had, I finished. Michelle crossed her arms. I'm angry. I understand. No, I don't think you do, she snapped. We're family. You don't keep secrets like this from family. Why not? I asked. You keep secrets. Everyone does. Not about something this big. Maybe that's why I kept it, I shot back. Because I knew it would become a thing, like it's becoming right now. Silence, heavy, tense. Mom sank onto a stool at the marble island, the same spot Daniel had sat that first day. She placed her head in her hands. Did you not trust us? She whispered. My chest tightened. I trusted you to love me, I said quietly. I didn't trust you to let me have this without meddling, without turning it into a project, without making it about what you thought I should do. Dad looked hurt. Mom looked devastated. Michelle looked betrayed. For the first time, I wasn't hiding behind politeness or vague answers. The truth was raw and exposed, like an old wound that had finally been opened so it could heal. After a long, aching moment, Dad finally spoke. Can we see the rest? So I gave them the full tour, room by room, floor by floor. Their reactions echoed what Daniel and Sarah had expressed. Shock, awe, confusion, a quiet kind of grief. For the years they'd misunderstood who I was. When we returned to the kitchen, I said, I'm not trying to punish anyone. I just needed space to build something without being second-guessed, without being told I wasn't doing it right. Mom stood, tears in her eyes. She walked toward me and hugged me, a long, trembling hug. I'm proud of you, she whispered. I should have said that first. Something broke open in my chest. Some tight, small thing inside me snapped in half, and the pieces finally had room to breathe. At 6:30, the doorbell rang. I opened it to Daniel and Sarah, who stepped inside wearing identical expressions of holy God, they know. Daniel immediately scanned the room, looking for emotional casualties. When he found none bleeding on the floor, he exhaled. You told them, he said. I told them. How'd it go? About how I expected. Chaos? No, I said with a small smile. Honest. We ordered pizza instead of cooking some grand meal. Everyone gathered around the island, eating slices with paper plates. No forced celebration, no fake toasts, just a family relearning how to sit with each other. Near the end of the evening, Dad turned to me. Why now, Eileen? I thought for a long moment. Because hiding stopped feeling peaceful, I said, and started feeling small. He nodded slowly. I get that, he said. More than you know. Mom kissed the side of my head. We'll do better, she whispered. You already are, I whispered back. 3 months later, Thanksgiving. Uncle Jim cornered me again. How's the apartment search, Eileen? I smiled. Actually, I bought a place a few years ago. Really? Where? How much? I shrugged. Enough. He blinked, then laughed and walked off. For the first time in years, Daniel didn't freeze. He raised his glass to me from across the room. I raised mine back. Because the secret wasn't a secret anymore. Not completely. But I had learned something crucial. Privacy isn't hiding. Privacy is choosing what to share and who deserves to hold it. Later that evening, Dad pulled me aside. Thank you, he said. For what? I asked. For trusting us eventually. I smiled. It wasn't easy. I know, he said softly. But I'm proud of you. Proud of the life you built. The discipline, the focus, all of it. He hugged me. Clumsy, short, but real. And that was worth more than the entire house. As I sat at the table that night, surrounded by my imperfect, complicated, finally understanding family, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Connection. Not built on assumptions, not built on judgment, not built on secrets, but on truth. Selective truth. Enough truth. And for the first time in a very long time, I felt free.